The night shift on Kepler 442b was always quiet. Ji-ho liked it that way. He sat in his small control room, watching the water reclamation systems do their work. The machines hummed softly, pulling moisture from the air and cleaning it for the colony to use. Outside his window, the red moon hung low in the purple sky. Ji-ho was one of only 12 humans on this mining colony. Most species didn't like the human sector. They called it the humid zone. Humans needed more water than other species. They needed it in the air, on their skin, in everything they did. Other aliens found it uncomfortable. They stayed in their own sectors where the air was dry and thin. That was fine with Ji-ho. He didn't mind being alone. He had his work, his books, and his small garden where he grew tomatoes and herbs. At 32 years old, he had spent 5 years on this colony. It was peaceful. Boring sometimes, but peaceful. The alarm broke the silence at 3 in the morning. Ji-ho jumped up from his chair. His coffee spilled across the desk. The proximity sensor was flashing red. Something was right outside his door. Something big. He pulled up the external camera on his screen. At first, he couldn't understand what he was seeing. A figure lay crumpled against his door. The body was large, maybe 2 meters tall, with a crystalline surface that caught the light from his porch lamp. The crystals were supposed to glow. Ji-ho had seen Velari before. Their bodies shimmered with soft light, like living diamonds. But this one's light was barely there. It flickered like a dying bulb. Ji-ho grabbed his emergency kit and ran to the door. When he opened it, cold air rushed in. The figure at his feet was definitely Velari. She was female, he thought, though it was hard to tell with their species. Her crystalline skin had cracks running through it like broken glass. Her breathing sounded wrong, like grinding stone. "Help," she whispered. Her voice was rough, painful to hear. "Please." Ji-ho knelt beside her. "I'm calling medical." "Hold on." Her hand shot out and grabbed his wrist. Her grip was weak but desperate. "No time." "My daughter." She pressed something into his hand. "A datapad." "She needs water." Ji-ho stared at her. "Water? But you're Velari." "You don't." "My daughter needs water," the alien said again. Her eyes, dark and deep like holes in crystal, locked onto his. "Please, human, she needs water." Then her hand went limp. Her eyes closed. The faint glow in her body went out completely. Ji-ho's fingers were already moving, calling for help. "Nari, emergency." Velari female, collapsed, unconscious. "Get here now." He dragged the alien inside. She was heavy, much heavier than a human. His back screamed in protest, but he got her onto his floor. He checked her breathing. Still alive. Barely. The datapad in his hand was still on. He looked at the screen. Coordinates. A location 2 kilometers away. And a photo. A young Velari, small, with clouded crystal skin. A child. Nari arrived 7 minutes later. She was 45, with gray streaks in her short black hair and eyes that missed nothing. She had been the colony's chief medic for 10 years. She knew more about alien biology than anyone Ji-ho had ever met. She dropped to her knees beside the unconscious Velari and pulled out her scanner. The device hummed as it passed over the alien's body. Nari's face went from concerned to confused to shocked in the space of 30 seconds. "This is impossible," she muttered. "What is?" "She's dehydrated." "Severely dehydrated." Nari looked up at Ji-ho. "Velari don't dehydrate. Their biology doesn't work that way. They're silicon-based. They process moisture differently. They barely need water at all." Ji-ho showed her the datapad. She said her daughter needs water. "These are coordinates. There's a child out there." Nari studied the screen, then looked at the unconscious alien. If the mother is dehydrated, and she's saying her daughter needs water, ... She stood up quickly. We need to go. Now. What about her? Jiho gestured to the Valari on his floor. Nari was already setting up in 4-line, something she modified on the spot. I'm giving her fluids. Basic saline solution. It might kill her, or it might save her. I don't know. But if she came to you asking for water, she must believe it will help. She looked at Jiho. Get the rover ready. Bring every container of water we have. And call Taiyang. We need him on comms. 15 minutes later, they were driving across the rocky surface of Kepler 442b. The rover's lights cut through the darkness. The coordinates led them away from the colony, toward the old mining sector that had been abandoned 3 years ago. Taiyang's voice crackled over the comm system. I'm reviewing Velari biology now, he said. Taiyang was the colony's xenoanthropologist. He studied alien cultures and histories. He was younger than Zhou, maybe 28, but he knew more about aliens than most professors. Everything I'm reading says water is neutral to them. Not helpful, not harmful, just ... unnecessary. Then why would she come to me? Jiho asked, steering around a large boulder. Why say her daughter needs water? I don't know, Taiyang admitted. But Valari don't lie. Their culture considers deception a serious crime. If she said her daughter needs water, she believes it's true. Nari was checking her medical kit. Maybe there's something we don't know about their biology. Maybe young ones are different. Maybe this is a mutation or a disease. The coordinates led them to a cave. It was small, barely tall enough for Jiho to stand up in. The rover's lights showed footprints in the dust, recent, leading in and out. Someone had been living here. Jiho grabbed a flashlight and water containers. Nari took her medical kit. Together, they entered the cave. They found her in the back corner. A small Velari, curled into a ball. Her crystalline body should have been clear and bright. Instead, it was cloudy, like frosted glass. She wasn't glowing at all. Her breathing was shallow and fast. Correct, Jiho said, reading the name from the datapad. Correct, we're to help. The child's eyes opened. They were dull, lifeless. She looked at them with fear. When Jiho stepped closer with a water bottle, she made a sound like breaking glass. Terror. No, she whispered. Poison. Water is poison. Stay away, Jiho froze. He looked at Nari. The medic was scanning the child, her face growing more worried with each passing second. She's dying, Nari said quietly. Her body is shutting down. I don't understand the mechanism, but I can see it happening. She has maybe 12 hours left. Jiho looked at the water bottle in his hand, then at the dying child who believed it was poison, then at the cave around them, where he now noticed something he had missed before. Equipment, scientific equipment, testing tools, and papers covered in Valari script. Research notes. Someone had been studying something here. Someone had been running experiments. And that someone was now unconscious on his floor back at the colony, having used her last strength to tell him one thing. Her daughter needs water. We need to figure this out, Jiho said. Fast, Nari moved slowly toward the child. She kept her scanner out, speaking in a soft voice. Correct. My name is Nari. I'm a doctor. I want to help you. The child pressed herself against the cave wall. Her clouded crystal body made a grinding sound. Mother said humans might help, but water kills. Water dissolves us. Everyone knows. Jiho was examining the research equipment scattered around the cave. Most of it was clearly meant for testing water. He found containers with different mineral contents, pH testing strips, and notebooks filled with diagrams and Valari writing. He took photos of everything with his datapad and sent them to Taiyang. Taiyang, I'm sending you images now. Research notes. Can you translate? There was silence on the come for a moment. Then Taiyang's voice came back, excited and confused. This is revolutionary research. Give me a few minutes. This is complex. Nari's scanner beeped. She studied the readings, her frown deepening. Jiho, look at this. She showed him the screen. See these markers? This is a metamorphosis pattern. Velari go through a change as they grow from child to adult. It's like human puberty, but more dramatic. Their crystal structure reforms. Usually it takes a few weeks. Usually? Corette's metamorphosis started 6 months ago. It never finished. She's stuck halfway. Her body is trying to change, but something is missing. Some catalyst or nutrient that would let the process complete. Nari looked at the dying child. Without it, her body is slowly failing. The old structure is breaking down, but the new one can't form. Jiho thought about the mother's words, about the research equipment, about everything around them. What if the missing catalyst is water? But that goes against everything we know about Velari biology, does it? Jiho picked up one of the notebooks. Or does it go against what Velari culture teaches? There's a difference. Taiyang's voice burst through the cum, loud with excitement. Jiho, Nari, I've translated enough to understand what's happening. This changes everything we know about the Velari. Tell us, Nari said. The mother's name is Shiara. She was a xenobiologist on the Velari homeworld. 3 years ago, she found ancient texts in a forgotten archive. The Velari didn't always live on a desert planet. Thousands of years ago, they lived on a moon with oceans and rain. They were adapted to water. They needed it. Jiho felt his heart beat faster. What happened? Political uprising. A new government took power. They decided to move the entire species to a different world, a desert planet. They said it was for resources, for expansion. But really, it was about control. The old moon had too many hiding places, too much wilderness. The new desert world was easier to govern. But the Velari biology, Nari said. How did they adapt? They didn't need to adapt much. Adults can survive fine without water. They evolved that way because their original moon had dry seasons. But children, during metamorphosis, they still need water. It's coded into their genetics. The ancient texts were clear about this. Nari looked at Kuret with new understanding. So the Velari government knew their children would die on a desert world? Not exactly, Taiyang said. Most children metamorphose quickly. The ambient moisture in the air, even on a desert planet, is usually enough. But some children, like Kuret, have a slower metamorphosis. They need more water. And when they don't get it, they die. How many? Jiho asked quietly. According to Shiara's research, about 5% of Velari children die during metamorphosis. It's been happening for generations. The government calls it natural selection. They created a cultural taboo around water to explain it. They teach that water is poison, that it dissolves silicon bonds, that touching it means death. Jiho felt sick. They let children die to maintain a lie. Shiara discovered the truth when her own daughter started metamorphosis and didn't finish. She started researching secretly. When the government found out, they tried to arrest her. She fled here, to this colony, because she knew humans use water freely. She hoped you would help. Nari was already opening her medical kit. Then we give Kuret water. Now. Wait, Taiyang said. It's not that simple. Shiara's notes mentioned that pure water could shock the system. You need the right balance. Minerals, pH levels, gradual introduction. If you do it wrong, you could kill her faster. Jiho looked at the research equipment around the cave. Shiara had been preparing for this. She had been testing different water compositions, trying to find the right mixture. But she had run out of time. I can do this, Jiho said. Water composition is my specialty. That's my entire job. Nari nodded. And I can handle the medical delivery. But we need to work fast. She doesn't have much time. They spent the next hour in that cave. Jiho analyzed Shiara's research notes with Taiyang's help. He tested different water samples, adjusting minerals and pH levels. The Veilari biology was silicon-based, which meant they needed trace amounts of silicon dioxide in the water. They also needed calcium, magnesium, and a specific pH of 7.8. Meanwhile, Nari prepared a delivery system. She couldn't just make Kurrit drink water. The child was too afraid, and besides, her digestive system might not process it correctly. Instead, Nari created dermal patches, small adhesive squares that would slowly release moisture through Kurrit's crystal skin. Correct, Nari said gently. I know you're afraid. I know everything you've been taught says water will hurt you. But your mother discovered something important. Water won't hurt you. Water will save you. The child's dull eyes focused on Nari. Mother? She's safe. She's with my friend. But she's very tired. She used all her strength to bring you help. She loves you very much. Tears formed in Kurrit's eyes. Tears that shouldn't be possible for a dehydrated being. I don't want to die. You won't, Jiho said, kneeling beside her with the first patch. We're going to help you. But you have to trust us. Can you do that? Kurrit looked at him for a long moment. Then, slowly, she nodded. Nar. I placed the first patch on Kurrit's arm. The child flinched, expecting pain. But nothing happened. No burning, no dissolving. Just a cool sensation against her crystal skin. They waited. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. Jiho checked his instruments. The patch was releasing moisture at the correct rate. The water was being absorbed into Kurrit's crystal structure. How do you feel? Nari asked. Strange, Kurrit whispered. Not bad, just strange. They applied 3 more patches, spacing them across her body. Then they waited more. Jiho monitored the composition. Nari watched Kurrit's vital signs. Taiyang stayed on the come, ready to provide any information they might need. An hour passed. Then, too, the sun started to rise outside, turning the purple sky orange and pink. Jiho's eyes were burning with exhaustion. Nari looked tired but focused. And then Kurrit made a sound. Not pain, surprise. Look, she whispered, holding up her arm. The cloudiness was clearing. Just a little, just at the edges where the patches touched her skin. But it was clearing. The crystal was becoming transparent again. It's working, Nari breathed. Kurrit stared at her arm with wonder. I can ... I can think better. My head was so foggy before. I couldn't remember things. But now, it's clearing. Jiho felt relief wash through him. We need to keep going, slowly. Your body needs time to adjust. They stayed with Kurrit all day. Gradually, more patches. Gradually, more water entering her system. The change was slow but undeniable. The cloudiness retreated. The cracks in her crystal skin began to heal. And most importantly, a faint glow started to appear inside her body. Not much, but it was there. Life, returning. By evening, Kurrit could sit up on her own. She could speak clearly. She could smile. Thank you, she said to them. Thank you for not believing the lie. Jiho smiled back. But in his mind, he was worried. They had saved one child. But what happened when the rest of Veilari found out what they had done? What happened when the government learned that humans had given water to a Velari child, breaking the most sacred taboo of their culture? He had a feeling they were going to find out very soon. Shiara woke up in a human medical facility. For a moment, she panicked, not recognizing where she was. Then memory flooded back. Her daughter. The human's door. The desperate plea. She tried to sit up, and pain shot through her body. A human woman appeared beside her, pressing her gently back down. Don't move too fast. You are severely dehydrated. I've been giving you fluids, but you need rest. My daughter, Shiara said. Her voice was raw. Correct. Where is she? The human woman, Nari, smiled. She's alive. She's recovering. My colleague is with her now. Tears spilled down Shiara's crystalline face. You gave her water? Even though it breaks our laws? Your laws don't apply to us, Nari said simply. And besides, your daughter was dying. We had water. We gave it to her. That's what anyone should do. Shiara stared at this human. So practical. So direct. Her people would have debated for days. They would have consulted authorities, checked regulations, worried about consequences. This human just saw a dying child and acted. Thank you, Shiara whispered. The door opened. Jiho entered, looking exhausted but relieved. She's asking for you, he said. Correct. She wants to see her mother. They brought Shiara to the cave on a medical transport. She was still too weak to walk far. When she saw her daughter, sitting up, with clear crystal skin and a soft glow in her body, she broke down completely. Mother and daughter held each other. They spoke in their own language, words too fast for the translator to catch. Jiho and Nari stood back, giving them privacy. We did a good thing, Nari said quietly. We also started a problem, Jiho replied. He showed her his datapad. Messages from the colony administrator. The Velari delegation knows something is happening. They're asking questions. Back at the colony, word was spreading fast. Humans had taken a Velari child. Humans had given her water. The Velari community was in an uproar. Some were angry. Some were confused. All were demanding answers. Hyon, the colony administrator, called an emergency meeting. He was 50 years old, with a calm demeanor that made people trust him. But today, he looked worried. The Velari delegation is formally requesting we turn over Shiara and Kurrit, he said. They're calling it a rescue. They say Shiara kidnapped her own daughter and poisoned her mind with false teachings. Jiho stood up. That's a lie. Shiara was trying to save her daughter's life. I know that, Hyon said. But the Velari government doesn't see it that way. To them, Shiara is a criminal. She stole restricted research materials. She fled justice. And now she's corrupted a human colony with her dangerous ideas. Dangerous ideas like not letting children die? Nari's voice was sharp with anger. Hyon raised his hands. I'm on your side. But this is bigger than one child now. The Velari are threatening to pull out of the mining operation. If they leave, we lose 30% of our workforce. The colony's economy could collapse. Silence fell over the meeting room. The 12 humans looked at each other, then at the dozen other species present. Everyone was calculating risks and benefits. Finally, someone else stood up. It was Doyan, a quiet data analyst who rarely spoke at meetings. He was young, maybe 25, with sharp eyes behind his glasses. I've been looking into Shiara's research, he said, and I found something interesting. He pulled up data on the main screen. These are Velari population statistics going back 500 years. Notice anything strange? Jiho studied the numbers. The birth rate is high, but the population grows slowly. Exactly, Doyan said. Velari have lots of children. But somehow, the population stays relatively stable. Where do all those children go? Another pause. Then understanding rippled through the room. They die, Nari said softly. During metamorphosis. Doyun nodded. 5% mortality rate among children aged 10 to 15. It's been consistent for centuries. The Velari government calls it natural. They say it's genetic weakness, that only the strong survive. He changed the display. But here's data from before the Exodus, from when they still lived on their original moon. The mortality rate was less than 1%. Because they had water, Geo said. Because they had water, Doyun confirmed. The Velari government has been allowing children to die for generations to maintain a political lie. They can't admit that moving to the desert world was a mistake. They can't admit that their cultural taboo against water is killing their young. So they just let it happen. The room erupted. Species from a dozen different worlds started talking at once. Some were horrified. Some were skeptical. All were shocked. A voice cut through the noise. This is a serious accusation. Everyone turned. A Velari stood in the doorway. Not one of the usual delegates. This one was younger, maybe early 20s in human terms. His crystal body glowed with a healthy blue light. His face was hard to read, but his voice shook with emotion. My name is Kurith, he said. I am assistant to the Velari delegation. And I had a sister. Her name was Lursha. She died 7 years ago during metamorphosis. She was 12. They told me it was natural. They told me her body was weak. They told me to honor her memory by being strong. He walked into the room. Every eye followed him. But she wasn't weak. She was brilliant. She was kind. She was my best friend. And one day she just started fading. Her crystal clouded. Her glow dimmed. It took 3 weeks. I sat with her every day. I watched her die. His voice broke. Are you telling me she died because she needed water? Something we could have given her? Something that would have saved her? Doyun pulled up more data. Based on the timing and description, yes. Your sister died from incomplete metamorphosis. Water would have saved her. Kurith stood very still. Then he turned to the older Velari delegate who had followed him into the room. Did you know? Did the government know? The older delegate's name was Sharok. He was a high-ranking official, maybe 60 years old. His crystal skin was deep purple, indicating age and status. He looked at Kurith for a long moment. We knew the old texts mentioned water, Sharok said carefully. But those texts are ancient. We believed evolution had changed us. We believed the taboo was based on real danger. Did you test it? Kurith demanded. Did you ever test whether water actually helps? Or did you just accept what you were told and let children die? Sharok had no answer. Kurith turned back to Hyan. Where is Shiara? I want to speak with her. They brought Shiara to the meeting. She was stronger now, able to walk with support. Kurith came with her, holding her mother's hand. The young Velari looked healthier than she had in months. Her crystal was clear. Her glow was steady. She looked like any normal Velari child, except for one thing. Inside her crystal structure, there were now veins of blue and green, colors that came from water flowing through her body. Colors no adult Velari displayed. The room went silent when they saw her. This is impossible, Sharok whispered. This is proof, Shiara said. Her voice was stronger now, filled with anger and grief. Proof that I was right. Proof that our children don't have to die. Proof that the government has been lying for centuries. Kurith walked up to Kurrit. He knelt down to her eye level. What does it feel like? The water? Kurrit thought about it. Like waking up from a bad dream. Like being able to breathe after holding your breath for too long. Like finally being complete. My sister never got to feel that, Kurith said. Then he stood and faced Sharok. I resign from the delegation. I will not serve a government that kills children to protect its pride. You're being emotional, Sharok said. This is one case. One anomaly. It doesn't prove. It proves everything. Kurith interrupted. And if you can't see that, you're blind by choice. Hyen stepped forward. Here's what's going to happen. Shiara and Kurith have sanctuary in the human sector. Any Velari who threatens them will be removed from the colony. And we're releasing Shiara's research to every scientific database we can access. The truth is going public. Sharok's crystal body darkened with anger. The Velari government will respond to this. There will be consequences. Let them come, Jiho said. He stood beside Shiara and Kurith. We're not afraid of consequences for doing the right thing. One by one, the other humans stood up. Then other species joined them. A Rigzari trader, a Morthian engineer, even some of the Velari workers who had been listening from the doorway. We stand with the humans, the Rigzari said. This is justice. Sharok looked around the room. He was outnumbered, and he knew it. Finally, he turned and left without another word. Kurith stayed. He looked at the humans with something like wonder. You risked everything for someone else's child. Why? Jiho shrugged. Because she needed water. And we had water. What else were we supposed to do? The news spread across the galaxy faster than anyone expected. Shiara's research was published on open networks. Within days, scientists from 100 worlds were reading it. Within weeks, the Velari government was facing questions from every corner of their own society. But the immediate problem was on. Kepler 442b, the colony had become the center of a political storm. More Velari arrived on transport ships. Most were officials from the government coming to contain the situation. But some were parents. Parents who had lost children during metamorphosis. Parents who had questions they'd never been allowed to ask before. Jiho's water facility became an unlikely sanctuary. He and Nari, with Shiara's help, had converted one section into a treatment center. They could handle 6 patients at a time, carefully administering water therapy to young Velari who were failing metamorphosis. Kurith had brought them the first case. A young Velari named Tyven, only 11 years old. His parents were mining workers on the colony. They had watched him grow weaker for 2 months, believing it was natural that they had to accept his death. When they heard about Kurith, they came to Kurith in desperation. Can you really save him? The father asked. His name was Jintar, and his crystal body was dim with grief. We can try, Jiho said. We've learned a lot from treating Kurith. We know what works. But the government says it's poison, the mother herein said. What if they're right? What if we're killing him faster? Nari showed them the scans. Your son is dying right now. His crystal structure is breaking down. Without intervention, he has maybe a week left. Water therapy gives him a chance. Maybe 90% success rate, based on our models. 90%, Jintar repeated. He looked at his son, who was barely conscious. Then he looked at Kurith, who was playing with a puzzle in the corner of the room, healthy and bright. Do it. Save our son. They began treatment immediately. Tyven was more dehydrated than Kurith had been. It took 3 days of careful work before they saw improvement. But on the 4th day, his crystal began to clear. On the 5th day, he opened his eyes and smiled at his parents. Word spread. More parents came. Some came secretly, afraid of government reprisal. Others came openly, defiant. Within 2 weeks, Jiho's facility was treating 12 young Velari. Every single one recovered. The Valari government tried to suppress the story. They sent official statements claiming the children were suffering from a rare disease, that the water therapy was coincidental, that Shiara's research was flawed. But the evidence was too strong. Scientists from other worlds reviewed the data and confirmed it. Medical journals published studies. The truth couldn't be hidden. Then came the protests. On the Valari homeworld, parents who had lost children began demanding answers. They gathered in front of government buildings, holding pictures of their dead children. They asked why their leaders had let this happen. They asked how many children had died unnecessarily. The government's response was to crack down. They arrested protest leaders. They shut down communication networks. They declared martial law in several cities. That only made things worse. Back on Kepler 442b, the colony received a transmission from the Valari Central Command. It was not a request. It was an order. All Valari citizens were to return home immediately. Any Valari who remained on the colony would be considered traitors. Any non-Valari who aided traitors would face sanctions. Hyen called another meeting. This time, the room was packed. Every human on the colony was there. Most of the other species, too. And a large group of Valari, including the parents of the children in treatment. "We have a decision to make," Hyen said. "The Valari government is threatening sanctions. They could block our trade routes. They could freeze our assets. They could make it very difficult for this colony to survive. So we give them what they want?" Someone asked. "I didn't say that," Hyen replied. "I'm asking what we want to do." Jiho stood up. "We have 12 children in treatment. If we send them back now, they'll die. The Valari government won't allow them to continue water therapy. They'll let them die to prove their point." Jintar stood up too. "My son is alive because of humans. Because these people saw a child dying and helped. They didn't ask permission. They didn't check regulations. They just helped." He looked around the room. "I will not take my son back to die, even if it means I can never go home." One by one, other Valari parents stood. 8 families total. They all said the same thing. They would not sacrifice their children for politics. Then Kurith stood. "I've been communicating with people on our homeworld. The protests are bigger than the government admits. There are millions of Valari who are questioning everything now. The government is losing control. How long before things change?" Hyen asked. "I don't know. Months, maybe? Or years?" Kurith looked at the human administrator. "But change is coming. Because humans showed us the truth. You didn't do it with weapons or threats. You did it with water and kindness." Hyen nodded slowly. "Then here's my decision. This colony will continue to provide sanctuary to any Valari who needs it. We will continue treating children. We will share our research with anyone who asks. And if the Valari government wants to punish us for that, let them try." The room erupted in cheers. But Jiho noticed something. Not all the other species were cheering. Some looked worried. The Rexari trader who had supported them before was frowning. After the meeting, Jiho approached him. "You don't agree with this?" The Rexari, whose name was Vex, shook his massive head. "I agree with the morality, but I worry about the consequences. The Valari are a powerful species. They have influence. If they want to hurt this colony, they can. And that hurts all of us. So we should let children die to avoid economic problems." "I didn't say that," Vex replied. "But you humans, you always do this. You see a problem, and you fix it without thinking about the bigger picture. Sometimes that's admirable. Sometimes it's dangerous." Jiho thought about that. "Maybe, but I'd rather be dangerous than let a child die when I have the power to help." Vex studied him for a long moment. Then he smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. That's why the galaxy needs humans. You remind us what matters. The next few weeks were tense. The Valari government made good on their threats. They blocked 2 trade shipments to the colony. They convinced 3 other species to pull their workers from Kepler 442b. The colony's economy took a hit, but something unexpected happened. Other species started filling the gap. The Rexari increased their trade routes. A Morthian corporation offered new contracts. Even some individual Valari, operating in secret, sent supplies and resources. And the children kept recovering. Tyvane was the first to complete his metamorphosis. It happened one night, 3 weeks into treatment. His parents were sleeping in chairs beside his bed. Nari was doing rounds when she heard him gasp. She ran to his room. Tyvane was sitting up, his body glowing brighter than she'd ever seen a Valari glow. His crystal structure had completely reformed. He was taller now, his features more defined. And inside his crystal body, there were beautiful veins of blue and green, just like currents. The water had become part of him. I feel amazing, he said, looking at his hands in wonder. Is this what it's supposed to feel like? Being alive? His parents woke up. They saw their son, healthy and transformed. They both broke down crying. By the end of the month, all 12 children had completed their metamorphosis. All 12 survived. All 12 bore the marks of water in their crystal structures, colors no other Valari possessed. They became a symbol. Proof that the old way was wrong. Proof that change was possible. Doyan compiled all the data and published a comprehensive report. He sent it everywhere. Scientific journals, news networks, government databases, public forums. He made sure the truth was impossible to suppress. The report had a simple conclusion. Over the past 500 years, approximately 2.4 million Valari children have died during metamorphosis. Based on treatment success rates observed at Kepler 442b colony, at least 2.1 million of those deaths were preventable. They died because their government chose political ideology over scientific truth. Those numbers changed everything. The protests on the Valari homeworld exploded into full-scale civil unrest. Government buildings were occupied. Officials were forced to resign. The old leadership, including those who had maintained the water taboo for centuries, fell from power. It took 6 months, but eventually a new government formed. One of their first acts was to formally apologize to Shiara and to every family who had lost a child. They declared the water taboo void. They mandated water therapy for all children undergoing metamorphosis, and they invited Shiara to return home as a hero. She declined. "My home is here now," she said, "where people saved my daughter without asking for anything in return, where the truth matters more than tradition." But she did agree to help train Valari medical staff in water therapy techniques. She worked with Jiho and Nari to develop standardized treatment protocols. She made sure every Valari child, everywhere in the galaxy, would have access to the water they needed to survive. A year after Shiara collapsed on Jiho's doorstep, the colony on Kepler 442b hosted a ceremony. Representatives from 40 different worlds attended. The Valari sent their new Minister of Health, a young progressive who had lost her own brother to metamorphosis failure. News networks from across the galaxy broadcast the event. The ceremony was simple. Kurrit, now healthy and strong, planted a tree. It was an earth tree, an oak sapling that Jiho had grown from a seed. The symbolism was clear. Life taking root in unexpected places, growing strong with the right care. "This tree needs water," Kurrit said, speaking to the crowd. Her voice was steady, confident. Nothing like the dying child who had hidden in a cave. "Just like I needed water. Just like every living thing needs what it needs to survive." That sounds obvious, but my people forgot it. We let politics and pride make us ignore basic truth. She looked at Jiho, Nari, and Taiyang, who stood nearby. Humans didn't forget. When my mother brought me to them, they didn't see a political problem. They saw a child who needed help. They had water. They gave it to me. It should have been that simple all along. The crowd applauded. But Kuret wasn't finished. Today, I'm enrolling in the colony's engineering program. I'm going to study water systems under Engineer Jiho, because I want to go home someday. I want to return to the Valari homeworld and build the water infrastructure our children need. I want to make sure no child ever dies the way I almost died. More applause. Shiara stood beside her daughter, glowing with pride. She had been offered positions at a dozen prestigious research institutions. She had turned them all down. Like her daughter, she had work to do here first. After the ceremony, there was a reception. Species from across the galaxy mingled, sharing food and conversation. Jiho found himself talking with the Valari health minister. "Your people changed our entire civilization," she said. "You showed us we were wrong about something fundamental. That's not easy for any species to accept." Jiho sipped his drink. "We just gave a kid some water. You're the ones who changed your whole government. Because you showed us it was necessary." She paused. "Can I ask you something? Why did you help? You could have turned Shiara away. You could have said it wasn't your problem. Instead, you risked your career, your colony's economy, everything. Why?" Gio thought about it. "I don't know how to explain it exactly. But there was a dying child, and I had the resources to help. Not helping would have meant choosing politics over a life. And I guess humans just can't do that. We can't look at a child and see a political problem. We see a child." The minister nodded slowly. "That's why other species respect humans, I think. You're not the strongest. You're not the smartest. Your technology isn't the most advanced. But you have this thing, this instinct, to help even when it costs you. The galaxy needs that." Over by the refreshment table, Nari was talking with a group of xenobiologists. They were discussing the implications of the Valari case. How many other species might have false beliefs about their own biology? How many other cultural taboos might be hiding medical truths? "It makes you wonder what else we don't know," a Morthian scientist said. "How many problems exist that we think are unsolvable, but really we just haven't questioned the right assumptions." "That's the human gift," Nari said. "They question everything. Sometimes it's annoying, but sometimes it saves lives." Taiyang was in a corner, talking with Kareth. The young Valari had become something of a celebrity on his homeworld. He had written a book about his sister's death and what he had learned from humans. It was required reading in Valari schools now. "Do you ever regret it?" Taiyang asked. "You gave up your career with the old government. You became a controversial figure." Kureth shook his head. "I regret not questioning things sooner. I regret that my sister died because I believed what I was told. I won't make that mistake again." He looked across the room at Kureth, who was laughing with other young Valari. "Those children are alive because someone questioned authority. Because someone said, 'What if we're wrong?' That's worth any career." As the reception continued, more people approached the humans. A young Valari couple, both researchers, came to thank Jiho personally. "We're expecting a child," the mother said. "Because of you, we know our baby will be safe during metamorphosis. You gave us hope for the future." An elderly Valari, his crystal body dark with age, stopped by. "I lost 3 children," he said quietly. 3. I believed it was natural. I believed they were weak. Now I know the truth. Now I know my government lied to me. I just wanted to say thank you for exposing that lie. It doesn't bring my children back, but maybe it gives their deaths meaning. Jiho didn't know what to say to that. He just gripped the old Valerie's hand. As evening fell on Kepler 442b, Jiho found himself back at his water facility. He liked to check the systems before bed, an old habit. The machines hummed quietly, processing moisture from the air, just like they had the night Shiara collapsed at his door. He thought about how much had changed in 1 year. A dying mother, a desperate plea, a simple act of giving water to someone who needed it. And from that, a revolution. A government overthrown. Laws rewritten. Millions of lives saved. He heard footsteps. Corette approached, holding a datapad. Engineer Jiho? I was reviewing the water composition formulas. I have some questions about the mineral ratios. Jiho smiled. Sure, let's take a look. They sat together, going over the technical details. Corette was a quick learner. She asked smart questions. She understood not just the how, but the why. In a few years, she would probably understand water systems better than Jiho did. Can I ask you something personal? Corette said after a while. Go ahead. When my mother came to your door, did you know helping us would cause all this? The political problems, the sanctions, everything? Jiho thought back to that night. The alarm. The dying alien at his door. The desperate whisper. Honestly, I didn't think that far ahead. I just saw someone who needed help. And that was enough? Just seeing someone who needed help? It had to be enough. Because the alternative was letting you die. And I couldn't do that. Corette was quiet for a moment. Humans are strange. You make decisions based on feelings instead of logic. You risk everything for people you don't even know. It doesn't make sense. Maybe not, Jiho agreed. But it's who we are. I think that's why the galaxy needs humans, Corette said. You remind everyone else that logic isn't everything. That compassion matters. That helping someone shouldn't require a cost-benefit analysis. She stood up to leave, then paused. I'm glad my mother found your door. I'm glad you're human. I'm glad you had water and weren't afraid to share it. After she left, Jiho sat alone with his machines. He thought about the chain of events that had started in this very room. He thought about all the children who were alive because of a simple act of kindness. He thought about how one night, one decision, one gesture of help had rippled across an entire civilization out outside. The red moon rose over Kepler 442b. The colony was quiet. The stars shone bright in the purple sky. And in the human sector, water flowed freely through the pipes, abundant and life-giving, ready for anyone who needed it, somewhere in the colony. Young Villari slept peacefully, their crystal bodies glowing with health. Their parents slept easier knowing their children would survive metamorphosis. And across the galaxy, on the Vaori homeworld and a dozen colony worlds, water systems were being installed. Infrastructure was being built. Children were being saved, all because one mother collapsed on a human's doorstep and whispered 5 simple words, "My daughter needs water." And the human, without hesitation, without calculation, without fear of consequences, had done the only thing that made sense, the only thing that was right, the only thing that was human. He helped. That was the story the galaxy would remember. Not of humans as warriors or conquerors or explorers, but as the species who saw a dying child and shared their water, who questioned authority when authority was wrong, who risked everything because it was right. That was humanity's gift to the galaxy. Not superior technology or military might, just the simple, stubborn, beautiful refusal to walk past someone who needed help. Jiho stood up and turned off the lights in his facility. Tomorrow, he would train Corette more. He would help develop better water therapy protocols. He would continue his work making sure clean water was available to anyone who needed it. But tonight, he could rest. He had done a good thing. He had saved a life. And from that one life saved, countless others would be saved too. That was enough. That was more than enough. That was everything.